What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to the 15th annual Smark Out Moment End of the Year Awards, the 5th annual AEW side of the year-end awards. We are going to talk about the best and the worst of all elite wrestling from 2024. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, joined as always by Robert DeFelice.
Hey.
And Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And you should know the score by now after doing so many of these, but if you don't know, here is the quick rundown. We are talking about, yes, the best and the worst of the year. We have all the same categories that we've had last year, and I'm pretty sure the year before that. I don't remember exactly when I did the last tweak to this, but it's as standardized as it could possibly get at this point. We have 3 separate sections of awards. Each section of awards has multiple awards inside of them, and then each one of those categories also has a best and a worst. The only difference being that there's one of them where it's just most shocking moment, because you can't have a best and a worst most shocking moment. It kind of doesn't work well. But we have the same categories on the AEW side as we do on the WWE side. We've consolidated them a while back, so if you check out the WWE side, you should know how that works. If you are just checking out the AEW stuff, we'll give you a rundown anyway and let you know what these categories are. But we always want you to see your side of the list and everything, what you guys have to say and everything. So hit up the Discord server. Maybe I'll even create like a dedicated section for the awards or something for everybody to give out their own thing. But you could also, of course, just tweet something out. You can post something on Facebook. You can go and put it up on the website, smarkoutmoment.com. Or if you are listening to us on YouTube, then of course you can leave a comment below. That's actually probably the most the easiest kind of thing that you can do is as you're going through, you could just leave a comment of my technical skill best for entrance is this and that, my worst is this and that, whatever. If you are on YouTube though, make sure that you hit the like button, make sure you are subscribed, ring that notification bell, hit that join button as well, and that'll get you access to the early access stuff. If you're listening to this ahead of time, then you know that that's how you were able to do that, because I'm scheduling this most likely for I think Thursday afternoon on the 19th, but we're recording this on the 17th in the afternoon. So whenever we get done recording, I'll just upload it and then you'll be getting a little bit of early access of that. And of course, if you do want to join the Darkcast tier or the Pick Your Poison tier, whatever, that's the best way of doing it. Patreon is another option for that. Redbubble and TeePublic is where you get your merchandise. And those are the plugs out of the way, at least for right now. We'll loop back around to that, but we got a lot of awards to get into. So let's start kicking this off. And again, most of these are kind of self-explanatory, but I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown of what each one of these things are as we go along. But we are on the technical skills side of these awards. And we always start that off with the way that makes perfect sense, with the best and the worst entrance of the year. Now, again, keep in mind for anybody, but every once in a while we get somebody that kind of forgets this, and I always want to try to mention it as we get started. This is just the AEW side of it. So if anybody goes, well, what do you mean? Cody Rhodes had a great entrance or something, that's the WWE side. It sounds kind of self-explanatory, but at the same time, I do get at least one comment of that almost every year where somebody just thinks we're lumping them all together. So no, strictly AEW on this side, except in the sense that you can put ROH in there. I treat the AEW and ROH relationship the same way as WWE and NXT. They're both under Tony Khan. The rosters mix and then mingle together. It wouldn't be worth creating a separate thing for ROH. So if you have any ROH things to put in there, feel free to. I don't watch ROH, so to me, there's not many things on here that I will have any kind of ROH representation for. But same when it comes to, any kind of other outsider things like that. You can put people that popped up for TNA on NXT in the WWE side, as long as it's from there. And if somebody had a great guest spot in AEW and they're not a part of the roster or whatever, you could throw them in there too, even if they're a New Japan person or something. So keep all that in mind too. But the best and worst entrances of the year is how we're going to start off. And this takes into account everything from the pyro, the lighting, the music, what they do during their entrances. Do you like their theme song? So on and so forth. And I will preface before we get started, I have fewer notes for this than I ever have had before, because 2024 has just been insane. So I'm sure that as we go along here, Rob and Callum are going to say something that's going to jog my memory, and I'm going to go, oh yeah, I changed my mind. I'm going to go with that one too or something. And if we do completely forget about something, drop them in the comments below too. Maybe we just go, oh my God, that's right. Brain fart. I couldn't think of that or whatever. So I will kick us off with the worst entrance for me. I would give a little bit of a shout out to Hangman Adam Page's new theme. I'm not a fan of it, but it's not the worst. I don't remember something specifically, but I'm pretty sure that Max Caster messed up a couple acclaimed raps this year. So
we'll get to it.
That's something that I was also keeping in mind, but without a doubt, the one that I have to pick here is the one that I mute my TV for, and that's Mercedes Moné. This piped in CEO chant bothers the hell out of me, and I love that Dvorak music, and they are ruining that for me. So it's also annoying me on that front. Worst entrance to me, Mercedes Moné. I don't like the little dance moves that she used to do fitting to the song either anymore. Not a fan whatsoever. You're going to hear Mercedes Moné pop up a lot on my list. What do you guys have for your worst?
I'm just going to go here and say the general Max Caster making a fool out of himself with these raps. I'm over the whole let's be edgy for edgy's sake. Let's, we're not going to get too political, but let's get super MAGA just to piss off the libs, and that he's like making that bleed into his character. And I'm really just ready for that whole act to go away in general. And yeah, it's easily the worst, most annoying entrance of the year for me.
And I guess I should just jump on the back of that and say that's also my choice for worst of the year. Like the Max Caster claim thing is just it's jumped the shark. It's jumped the shark like at least a year and a half ago, if not further back than that. I just think that the whole rapping gimmick is not over at this point. I think he's making too many flubs in some of his ones, or he's pushing the envelope with too many with certain topics which people want, which are just drawing the wrong kind of heat towards him. And he's not a heel anymore, so like when he was a heel it kind of made sense for him to do that stuff, but as a babyface, especially with the Acclaim's drop in popularity and his popularity in particular, it's not generating the same kind of reaction that he would want to have. So I think that the best route is to kind of draw a line on that, or at least like him turning heel and going on that route again, because at least that might revitalize that a little bit. But in its current format, it's just terrible. I've gone to the point where I'd like skip any Acclaimed entrance now.
Nobody loves the Acclaim. It's a shame because they were really great at one point, but yeah, it's not working super well this year. Best though, I have a couple options for that. I still like Adam Cole's entrance quite a bit. I can't deny that Final Countdown is one of my favorite songs of all time, so Bryan Danielson coming out to that song is just awesome. I mean, if you use that as an entrance for yourself at some point in your life, then of course you're gonna like it. I used to do that a little bit back in the play days of high school. But my runner up is going to be Swerve Strickland, and I specifically had written down All In, and I don't like super remember exactly what the All In one was, but I think that's the one where he had the rappers with him, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it was All Out or something. But he's got a great theme. Prince Nana coming out and doing that dance is fun too. But I still can't give it to that because I have to give it to Sting's final match.
And I'm also giving it to Sting's final match.
It's Showtime for the last time, that little auditorium bit, having his kids come out dressed up as like his other looks and stuff, and cool theme and cool visuals and all. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you get like Metallica, the rights to Metallica for a second time for Sting, and then your kids are your different versions of you through the years, so much so that at least one of them straight up said, I'm going to be a wrestler now. Sting's last match is going to come up a few times for me during this discussion.
So I had a few options listed down. So just in like as general entrances, I mean, Will Ospreay's entrance is fantastic. I think the crowd participation with that is so good. I've just always loved Elevated as a song. I think it's one of the best like wrestling themes ever, at least from my perspective. I love the Bang Bang Gang with like the camera rotating around them as they all have cut a little bit of like a miniature promo. I say like 3 of them cut like a miniature promo, and Juice just screams into the camera pretty much, or just makes some bizarre noise. So that's all great. I really liked Chris Statlander's entrance with Stokely as a manager, like because I love the very whited out entrance video, and like Stokely just shouting like every night is Saturday night, which is such a good theme, such a good slogan as well, and then her coming out and the music really works really well. But I would naturally default to just the very special entrances, and obviously Staying at Revolution is one of the top ones up there. I really liked Kazuchika Okada's debut entrance because just of the reaction that it got, and obviously the immediate heel turn as well, which was like a big shocking moment. But being the person that was in the crowd at All In, like being able to do the final countdown and just seeing that as Bryan Danielson was coming out, like that is just so electric a feeling. And it's the one and potentially only time I'm ever going to see Bryan Danielson wrestle live. So I have to give that entrance as like a special moment for me.
At the end of this, I'm curious how many things are going to end up being All In for you for multiple different reasons.
Not as many as you think. Not really? As many as you think. No,
I'm surprised.
It's difficult because like as an experience, it's amazing, and there's like there will be a few times it brings up, but like you don't actually see as much as when you watch it on TV. And I don't think, it's a spoiler for later on, but I don't think it was the best show of the year for AEW. So there was a bit of a thing there, but it definitely had its moments, and there was like awesome things about it. So I will bring that stuff up, but definitely Bryan Danielson's entrance was a highlight.
So again, that's just the entrance side of it, best and worst. We're going to move on to a bunch of other categories here, and let's move on to the ring gear / attire / clothing, outfits, whatever you want to call this thing. It could be something that they wore one time, just a very specific thing, or it could be something that they regularly wear. It's just like the appearance stuff for the most part. And on the worst, I tried not to do cop-out answers for a lot of these things this year, and I do want to throw that out there, but then ultimately try to pick something else. So even though I had written down Kyle O'Reilly and everyone else who wears just generic stuff and looks like they're any local wrestler when they're on this kind of a stage, I think that that's kind of crap unless they're actually like going with a gimmick. Get some personalized tights or something, But I'm not going to go in that direction. I want to give a shout out to Jack Perry's scapegoat head, because I think that it looks ridiculous in like a Mantar kind of way, not in like a fun, oh, that's a cool mask and then you take it off. I think it just looks dumb. But I'm going to go with the Young Bucks, and that's listed right now for me as everything the Young Bucks wore. I get it's in their characters, but holy shit.
I'm also going the Young Bucks, specifically because while I enjoy what they tried to do, I just want the Bucks to be the Bucks, and I feel like more and more I'm getting to be very, like, I don't know if sentimental is the right word, but just worried that, like, they might be retiring in, like, 2 years. Who the hell knows anymore? I just want to see them at their peak. And, yeah, I know people love the pearls and all that, but it wasn't my favorite gear for them. And because I liked the original Bucks so much, I have to say it's my worst gear.
I mean, I certainly wouldn't go on that side. I'm one of the people that likes the Bucks new aesthetic, but the ones I do have for the worst. So I was considering Billy Gunn, because 60-plus-year-old guy with like super blonde highlights and wearing like ripped pink shirts and stuff like that, it just doesn't work for me. Had like adjacent to the Bucks, like Jack Perry, again, just very plain black jean tights and the goat mask and that stuff. I just don't think, as I say, it doesn't give off aura to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the two that I'm kind of choosing between are Brandon Cutler, because I just think, yeah, I know he's just a jobber guy and he doesn't appear much on AEW anymore, and he's mainly confined to Ring of Honor. But the whole face mask and the really goofy like one piece outfit that he wears, like, okay, can you that was maybe funny 2 years ago, but can you update things a little bit now or try and go in a slightly different direction? And the other one is Top Flight dressed as pilots.
minus Layla Gray though, right?
yeah. Well, it's just it's just a case that's it's boring. Well, not boring, but it's like it's uncool. And these guys are like, these are supposed to be like some of your young, hot, up and coming stars, and then dressing them up in like like lame Halloween costumes. I just don't think is I don't think it gives off that vibe. It just makes them they've moved away from that now, which is obviously good. But the time they were doing it was just okay. You've gone from like a interesting young tag team act, admittedly without too much like a gimmick attached to you, but you could be seen as like cool just for the quality of your matches, and now you're slapping a pretty lame gimmick onto them, and I just don't think it worked.
You reminded me that I forgot to put on my list the jacket that Leo Rush keeps wearing.
Are you gonna knock the jacket, the super duper fly jacket, the 90s R&B big puffy coat for some ungodly reason that this man is wearing?
I think he looks more like he's trying to cosplay as I forget if it's Toka or Razor from Ninja Turtles 2. With all the spice.
I don't mind those because they're supposed to be dicks. Like, they're supposed to be heels and like be super arrogant and over stuff. So the really obnoxiousness of their jackets lends itself to not liking them. Whereas Top Flight was supposed to be baby faces, and so having them dressed up, it just made them too goofy.
Well, on the positive side of things, I had 3 written down. Again, probably forgetting a bunch of things that if I were to go back and have kept like a better track record of stuff, I might have written things down specifically. But I wrote down hologram in general. I think that whole idea is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's also on my list as in general.
And then I don't know which one of these two I would pick between. So I might have to just say it's one of these two, and then eventually at some point just pick either Bryan Danielson's dragon scale robe that he wore at All In, which I thought was really cool, or the one that Swerve Strickland had at AEW Dynasty, which is based off of the... I'm sorry about this noise, everybody. If you're hearing a bunch of banging, it's impossible for me to filter that out, and it's just terrible construction crap. So you're going to hear that the entire time. It's great. Love New York. Swerve Strickland, AEW Dynasty, the Black Panther Golden Jaguar habit. Now, it's funny because I also put that on the potential best for Carmelo Hayes for the exact same thing. Because they are inspired by the outfits that you've seen Killmonger wear in Black Panther. And those outfits are really cool as it is. And then when they incorporate that and they throw that in the wrestling, oh, look at that. It's a little bit of a mixture of not only already a cool outfit, but it's, you throw some Marvel stuff in there for me. Hell yeah. This is one of those two. I don't know which one I would actually pick between.
So... for some in general stuff, I like that Kyle Fletcher has just completely embraced just wanting to basically be an Australian Randy Orton and get as far away from Will Ospreay as possible. I like the new look for him. I think he looks like a star and is a top star in many ways. Got to give another shout out to Sting's last match for the attires worn by Sting's children, because, Surfer Sting, especially the Great American Bash 90 gear, is always a fun time. I think I'm going to actually throw a positive one in the direction of Mercedes Moné, though, and say her gear for Wembley Stadium I thought was really special. And, that's another, I didn't mention it. We talked about entrances, but that was another great entrance with the dogs. And she had that whole special stuff. But I really liked her gear for that, so I think I'm going to go Mercedes on this.
So there wasn't any particular signature gear that stood out to me, or one that I can I could vividly remember off the top of my head. Probably the ones that you guys mentioned would be among my list as well if I'd kind of been able to remember them. So I've kind of just gone with like people that I think that generally have really good clothing or attire. And like I think like Tony Storm, obviously, I think it just lends itself to the character to have this really interesting attire. And yeah, it's primarily on the black and white stuff, but I kind of like the pin-up era stuff that she does. Will Ospreay, I like the fact that he pivots his kind of color aesthetic, and it's all a lot of it is so heavily embedded in the Assassin's Creed universe, which well, I say I am a big fan of I was a big fan of that series until it just became like white noise, and so I don't really follow that as much as I used to. But I like that he has a big fandom for that franchise, and so that kind of comes across in all of his attire. Mercedes Moné just generally has really good hair. I think she puts a lot of thought and effort into the outfit she puts on, and she definitely steps it up for the bigger matches and the bigger occasions. But I think the top one is Swerve. I think he just hit the complete opposite of Top Flight. Everything he kind of wears just radiates cool, but not. But I'd say even if it is like incorporating some like Marvel elements and stuff on those lines, it still just gives up an aura of like just this is the guy. And I think that like every single thing that he wears and the way that he presents himself wearing that stuff is like a marker of the fact that he has become like this main event level guy. Outside of the one that I think he wore All Out, which was like this kind of like this overly green monstrosity, which I wasn't a big fan of. But other than that, for the most part, he wears the stuff he wears is really cool. So want to put him up for that.
Big shout out to Big Swerve Strickland, constantly wearing something that's pretty cool. He's a very like trustworthy one that like he's gonna have something decent on, as opposed to, you know, you get some people that are just like, all right, it's black trunks. You know. Let's move over to the signature maneuvers. Now this could be their finisher, but it doesn't have to be. It could be something that they use as like a setup move, or it could be some kind of a taunt that they do or whatever. Anything from, you know, you could pick something like the One-Winged Angel, or you could pick something like Orange Cassidy's little shin kick things. Like you know, it doesn't have to be the one thing that they do as their main move. And this is one that I was really struggling with because I just can't remember what a lot of people's finishers are. And this is across the board. It's not just AEW. It's the WWE one I was struggling with too. So the only two that I had written down before are very similar to each other. And they are, once again, the Judas effect, and then the Hurricane spinning back fist thing that Eddie Kingston does. And I'm leaning more towards that one because that one looks still somehow less effective than even the Judas effect. I don't like spinning back fist things. Anytime anybody does them, I think that they look incredibly stupid. And I get that like it probably would hurt, but I think a regular just punch to the face would hurt more. And nobody executes it in a way that makes me think like, okay, that's not only going to hurt more than a punch, but it's going to hurt so much that it can be a finisher. It just looks like they screwed up to me. So I might be forgetting something that I would be like, oh, that's right. Like, you know, maybe Aaron Solo might have some kind of like a finisher that I think is incredibly dumb that I'm forgetting because he never wins a match. But you know, I'm going to go with Kingston on that one.
Wow, just throwing Aaron Solo under the bus.
Oh, I'm going to mention him here and there.
For no reason.
He's my go-to, I don't remember what any of this guy does type of person because he's at the top of the alphabetical list.
I saw a move debut this year that I just think is silly and not at all effective for the guy doing it, and that's Ricochet's. I don't even. What is he called? The new reverse hidden blade.
I remember what you're talking about. It's the running like
It's the running
like,
short lariat.
Yeah.
It's not effective for Ricochet, and I think he was good doing the recoil, and he does a great 630. I know what he's trying to do, and I know what it's there for, but I don't like it. So that's my worst of the year, just because it seems so much weaker than what he's capable of.
just seeing if I can find it now, just so I can actually.
It's like there's something gun.
Let's see. I always check the Pro Wrestling Fandom Wiki because they usually are pretty up to date with that thing. If they have that listed down, it would be the. So it's got its Ricochet. No, I'm not seeing it on his list either. I'm just seeing like the Senton, the Recoil, Shooting Star Press, etc.
Yeah, I'm looking up to see it, but he recently debuted. This is like, what, a month or two old at this point, and it's not effective to me.
So my choice is, I have like 3 that I listed down. So, he's only recently debuted, but because Bobby Lashley is now in W, it means the Hurt Lock is now like bad in AEW as opposed to bad in WWE. I just don't think a full Nelson should be a finishing move in modern wrestling.
They hurt people.
Wheeler Yuta started adopting the knee plus, or however you want to refer to it, essentially the psycho knee, essentially, and yeah, he doesn't hit it anywhere near as well as Bryan Danielson does, which may be the point, but like the fact that he's doing it and he's also doing some other Bryan Danielson moves, it's like I understand the reason for it, but he needs to get better at doing them. In the same way, like The Miz took a lot of like Bryan Danielson's moves when he was in WWE, like he just doesn't perform them as well. And you understand, and it's like, okay, that might be the reason, or that might be the joke aspect of it, but it's just, especially if he's going to pin someone off the back of it should look impactful. But the worst, I'm not going to probably give as many of these as Tony would be to worst, but I think the Moneymaker's not a good move.
Yeah, that's actually a good one that I should add on my list.
She only hits it well about like 20% of the time.
That's the part that makes it not a good move.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I understand that she wants to have a pinfall finisher. And like, so obviously got like the bank statement or whatever she refers to it now as the submission, and she does other things like frog splashes and meteoras and all that other stuff. But so I understand the need to have a bit more of a flashy finishing move, pinfall finishing move, but she doesn't connect with it consistently enough, and it doesn't look good consistently enough to keep it as her main finisher or to make it like the ending of most of her matches. So I think she needs to find an alternative or find something that she can hit more regularly.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, it's not a best move.
As far as best moves go, though, I always really love Samoa Joe's Muscle Buster. So that is definitely in the running for me, but I think I'm probably going to have to go Hidden Blade.
Hidden Blade is the move I have as well. It's a nasty, nasty move, and Ospreay is just so good when he delivers it. And I would also give a shout out to the Tiger Driver, specifically the one that he hit on Danielson, and Danielson starts doing the convulsions and gets everybody scared and thinking that, oh God, it's happening again. Ospreay's so good, and he's going to come up in positives in almost every way in this discussion for me because he really is the best.
Yeah, so before I agree with you guys and say the Hidden Blade is the best move in professional wrestling, I'll say a few of my honorable mentions as well. I wish I could see more of this, but I love Roderick Strong's End of Heartache. It's such a fantastic move. Like, just flipping them up in the air and then dropping him on his knees. It's like, yeah, that would finish anybody off. So I wish to see him like just be the wrestler more and less of the shouting Adam and other people's names into the microphone. I'm a big fan of the house call. I think that it just looks really the way that he extends his leg on the kick just like makes it look really impactful, and obviously a big fan, as I always have been, of both Darby Allin's like suicide dives and the buckshot lariat, and Brody King's gut wrench pile driver is really good as well. But yeah, the Hidden Blade is the best move in pro wrestling. He just hits it out of nowhere. He has like the diving up in the air version of it. Like, it looks absolutely brutal when he's hitting someone from behind with it. And yeah, of course, like Ospreay's got other great moves like the Storm Driver as well. But yeah, I just think that it's such a great move, and so it needs to be commended.
That's our first trifecta of this award season. Let's see if we get any of those for any of the other categories.
I imagine they'll all consist of Will Ospreay if we do get more in this.
Ospreay's on a lot of positives for me, yeah. Let's go to the spot and botch. So either the coolest or best spot on the positive side of things, and on the negative side of things, the worst or the biggest botch. Since they're sort of parallels to each other, we're trying something out, and it's going to really make people think that this is super cool, and we did it really well, or, well, we fucked that one up royally. And I wrote a couple things down here, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot, so I wish that I could have seen maybe some compilations or something at the end of the year that people do, but maybe we're just a little bit too early for that, for people to start doing that. So here are the ones that I have, and stop me if it's your pick, but I have under my botches, I've got 5 that I've written down. One of them being actually one that I didn't even remember or come across until last night when I was doing some more research. In October, there's a match between Anna Jay and Harley Cameron, where the referee puts Harley Cameron's shoulder down so Anna Jay can pin her. Like, literally just pushes it down. Like, no, your shoulder is not down. Now I can pin. And that stuff is so stupid. I hate when the referees do that. I've got Sting's speech being cut midway through at the end of Revolution. It's his big retirement thing. And it's like, wow, we're out of time. You couldn't have planned that better? Really? That's a hell of a botch. I think this one hasn't aged as super well as when I originally wrote it down, but I had written down showing the all-in footage because it turned out to not be as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. And the two that I'm really going for, one being something that's going to pop up a little bit later. When Orange Cassidy was dumping the coins on Chris Jericho's car, now I don't quite know if I would constitute that a botch because they did what they were supposed to do. It just was stupid. So I don't think I'm going to pick that one. I'm going to pick that for something else. Instead, though, I got to go with that match where Adam Page was trying to interfere and Kip Sabian was trying to interfere, and they both got their timing off, so the whole thing just kind of fell apart. That's 2 botches in one.
Yeah. So that's also mine because this was hysterical, and it just left me going, wow, that made the whole end of the show feel flat. It was very strange. But that was all on Kip Sabian because he saw Christian going for a spear and thought, oh shit, it's the moment. And you can hear Christian go, not now. And then Kip Sabian just has to kind of just go away and kind of go back to where he was. And it left Hangman thinking, oh shit, I gotta run out too. So then he's just laying there and you get a great meme of Hangman just with the crazy eyes, just laying on his back. And it all worked out in the end, but yeah, it was a real big botch of miscommunication. And my runner-up, as Tony kind of alluded to, just the weird referee moments. Like, it's not only that Anna Jay thing, but it was during Danielson and Jack Perry at All Out in Chicago, where like the referee legit had to like break a small package himself instead of Jack Perry kicking out, which was just, it's strange to see. You know, I'm not gonna say I can do better than what these professionals do. I'm just, as a fan, it's very strange to see.
Because again, my memory just didn't click so well with like in terms of botches or memorable botches that stood out to me. There's only one that stands out, and I'm surprised I'm the only person that's going to be saying it, but I guess that's good. The biggest botch for me was Adam Copeland breaking his leg on the splash.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
that. I felt that, but it seems so like it's more heartbreaking than it is botch because it's just like fucking A, what are you doing?
Well, it's the issue. It's that, like, so he goes up super high, obviously to the top of the cage to dive, and I know he's like older now, but he still can do certain things. But it's I class it as a botch because he's going for a splash, but he doesn't flatten out his body. He goes pretty much down feet first. And whether that was just because he misjudged the height and the situation and just got nervous and so just went with that, or just a poor jump off of it and left him with no choice but to try and land on his feet. It's just, whatever it was, the mistake left him with a serious injury and put the TNT title in a weird situation for a little while. So I think that's looking forward to having him back whenever he's fit and healthy to do so. But that was the biggest botch for me.
That's a really good option for that. I wish I could have kept track of Botchamania when I was watching it throughout the year, and there's probably some really silly ones that are I don't know, Taya Valkyrie does some kind of stupid thing in a match, or some flippy thing where somebody botches the ropes or something. There's probably so many examples of this, but it's hard to keep track of this stuff throughout the year, especially this year for me. But I wrote down a couple for the best or coolest spot, and again, same thing, probably missing a lot of them, because the most recent one that I had written down was Anarchy in the Arena. And that one I wrote down most of everything in there. You got Darby Allin winch thing where he's upside down. You got the flamethrower stuff. That's on my list of one of the best matches of the year too. I also had down the fake neck injury thing from Billy Starks at ROH Supercard of Honor. That totally got me. So that was really cool. And two other things that I had written down from the very beginning of the year. So again, probably missing a lot that had happened here and there in other spots, but I actually specifically wrote down, this is how I wrote it down: Takeshita's rolling German suplex to Darby Allin on the ramp. Dynamite 1-3. Won't win, but it's the first thing for me to write down so early in the year. That's what I had written for that. And then I have written down under likely winner, Darby Allin does a swanton off the ladder in the ring, crashing through a plate of glass between four chairs on the outside at Revolution.
I don't know if you're picking that, but I am.
I am going to go with that one from what I can remember.
That was insane. He's not normal. He just doesn't want to be around, and I worry for Darby Allin sometimes. He's crazy. He's the man, though, and that was such a special moment in a special match on a special night.
Yeah, I mean, again, that'll probably be my choice as well, but I'm just going to look over my current other choices. The ones I had written down, again, it's one that's probably was less coverage for me, because there were loads of great matches and loads of great hardcore matches in particular through AEW this year. But one stood out. I don't know whether you can class this as a spot, but Hangman Page setting fire to Swerve's house is kind of like a storyline spot, and that was just okay. This is great. This is just a super fun way to end the show and add more heat, literally, to their feud. Speaking of fire, Jack Perry being set on fire in the Anarchy in the Arena match was just crazy as well. I wasn't so big of a fan of his van or truck driving into where Darby Allin supposedly was. I don't think that particularly worked, but him getting his legs set on fire was pretty cool. There were two moments, and then I'll get to the Darby Allin thing again, but the two moments in two Swerve Strickland matches. So at Forbidden Door, in his match with Ospreay, because he's at the point where he's pretty much in control and Ospreay just in his last breath, Ospreay goes for the hidden blade and it just has no effect on Swerve. He just stands there and takes it. And then in the match with Danielson at All In, Danielson at one point is doing the yes chants, and everyone's super excited, and he goes for the Psycho knee, and Swerve just takes a step back and just shrugs off and just moves off his chest, and then just hits the house call. And because I was there and super invested, I thought, oh my god, this is the moment, just to see that and just have literally the energy in the entire stadium get completely deflated by that one move, which was just so well put together. Sometimes it isn't the super crazy insane spots that live with you. It's that sort of that one moment of, oh wow, it was so subtle but so effective. But then sometimes it is the crazy spots to get the win. In this case, it is because Darby Allin jumping through loads of panes of glass on the outside is was one of the most insane things I've seen in wrestling. So it absolutely should win this award.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some in the past where it's been like, oh, the biggest, or the best spot was like, I don't know, somebody like tripping somebody up on the ropes, and you're like, man, it just worked super well, you know? But when you throw in all the glass, I don't know if it's real glass or not, we'll have CM Punk. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to beat that kind of stuff. So on the recognition side of it, we have the most overrated and the most underrated. Obviously, you would rather be underrated than overrated, although you'd rather be rated perfectly well. And that's actually kind of one of my problems here. I think that most people in AEW are pretty much rated about as well as they should be within the context of AEW. When you start comparing them outside of the company, then I think you can start opening up the debate about like who are the better wrestlers and like the entire, you know, history of pro wrestling and all that. When people are like overflating some people, and it happens in WWE too, or like underrating some people, whatever. So I really struggled with this one, but I ended up writing down a couple different names on the overrated, and none of them really stood out to me as being like, I'm definitely going to pick this one, other than my runner-up is Tony Storm, because I was never a fan of this character at all. But then somebody else came along this year that really took the cake for me and really took the spotlight away from her, and it was even more overrated. And that's repeated a bunch of times, Mercedes Moné. I have not enjoyed almost anything she has done in AEW so far. And it's to the point that the more that people talk about how, oh my God, amazing, best ever that she is, the more that I'm starting to look back and go, did I really love this stuff in WWE as much either? And that's the opposite of what you would hope for. You would hope that she would be doing better work in AEW, and it would make me, like, at the very least, appreciate that, if not also make me go, and you know, she was really great in WWE too, and no matter where she goes, she's awesome. And instead I'm just going, you know, maybe she was overrated in WWE too. And cutting the same promos as she did as Sasha Banks, I kind of feel like maybe I haven't liked Sasha Banks in the past few years, even.
See, I think that sucks, and I understand it though completely, because unfortunately, that's also my pick for most overrated. But that's only because that she just hasn't clicked as she should in AEW. I think her most recent matches against Statlander and Hazuki at Strong Style Up have me hopeful that maybe the woman that I consider to be the greatest of all time in North American women's wrestling is coming back around. But her entire AEW run was completely, hey, look, I'm here. I'm making so much money, but I can't, nothing I'm doing is clicking. I watched with someone who says it's like she's cosplaying Sasha Banks. And it sometimes does feel that way. You know, and unfortunately, she's my favorite women's wrestler. I hate doing this. I hated it a couple of years ago when I had to crap on Adam Cole. It's the same thing where it's just like, it's not clicking for me.
Yeah, I'm not going to go for Mercedes Moné because I think that by and large, or at least what I see, I don't think people, when I kind of see like the overrated side of things, I think that a lot of people are kind of on the similar vibe with Mercedes in terms of this hasn't been a very strong run, and her aura has diminished significantly since joining AEW through a mix of her own performances, the creative. So I don't think that she's overrated anymore because people have now lowered their expectations for her. So if I'm looking for ones that I feel like are still overrated, and some people still think, oh, these guys, both from the company side of things and also a fan side of things, the ones that come to mind are people like Jack Perry, who I think that we're just going to have to, not that he's bad by any stretch of imagination, but he has a ceiling. He should be just, you know, a good mid-card guy. maybe up mid-card, but I think that the perception of him, especially from Tony Khan and the way that he has positioned him over the years, suggests that he thinks this guy's going to be like one of their pillar stars. I mean, well, yeah, he's one of the 4 pillars. So he thinks that he's going to be like a standard bearer AEW moving forward, and I just don't think he's got it. And I think this run in particular, of the last couple of years with him as a heel, have kind of crystallised the fact that he has a ceiling. I'd say a similar thing about there's certain people as well, like Deonna Purrazzo.
She was on my potential list, yeah.
Yeah, because it's obviously just primarily a lot through Rob's hyping up of her over time, and like the bits I have seen Rob. Of her from oh yeah, it partly is, but like also things I've seen for Impact.
I accepted.
I would say, and I'm saying this is a negative, other people might say it's positive, that she's the female Randy Orton. In that she is so technically sound, and the stuff that she does good. She's got such great fundamentals. She's so boring, and her matches are so boring. They're so slow paced. Like, there isn't a lot of dynamism in what she does. So there's nothing wrong with wrestling that style, but you have to be interesting while you do it. And I just don't think she's able to do that stuff. And then you have your likes of, I mean, you said Tony Storm. I probably would say more towards the Mariah May side of things.
She's one of the
Tony and
potentials.
Mariah were also high on my list as well.
Yeah, and then there's, I mean, this one was a bit cheeky, but like the runners, because they're mean, and but they're going to get pushed out the back of it, and they might even win the tag titles at some point off the back of it, but they're just a mean. Yeah, in the same way, kind of the Acclaimed, but they're not as good a wrestlers as the Acclaimed. So
yeah,
but the person I'm going to go through and give this award to after all that rigmarole is Hook.
Oh no!
I think let's say Hook's in a similar boat to Jack Perry, whereas I think a lot of people thought that a lot of people had the perspective this is a future star, like a super top guy. I think he's pretty limited. Like he does like do some cool suplexes and all stuff, but he's been involved in multiple feuds this year. And admittedly, I'm not saying the creative for him was stellar in all cases, but you had that match with Samoa Joe earlier this year, and everyone sort of looks at that and said, okay, this is the starting point for Hook. And then it's not been built on from there, and you could say the creative is bad, and I can agree with that he hasn't been treated as well. But I also think that when he has been given opportunities, he's flattered to deceive and flattered to elevate feud to the next level. He still can't really do promos. He's still pretty much the same character in essence that he was 4 years ago. And I really think that he's the sort of guy that if AEW was to lose him to WWE, I don't think much would be lost.
I could see that argument, though. Yeah.
But I think that other people see him as, still perceive him as like, okay, he will be a future top star, and I'm kind of off the boat when it comes to that.
You know, when you said that, it occurred to me that I think he suffers from a little bit of that Goldberg syndrome, where you have a very limited window where you've got to make this guy do something else. Because, yeah, okay, everybody loves, send Hook, okay, he suplexes people, he does the same shtick over and over, but after a while, there's a ceiling to that. And it feels bland and repetitive. So I see your argument.
Yeah, I think Wardlow fell into the same trap as well, so...
somebody who none of us said, but I do want to bring up here, it's hard to, maybe not overrated, but improperly utilized, I want to say, is Okada. Like, I feel like he should have been a bigger deal this year. And he just sort of became lumped into this elite angle that didn't work. And it just sort of felt like, meh, by the end of it all. Which I don't think is good for Okada.
I would agree with that to an extent. I think the Continental Classic, he started to get his boots on. He's starting to feel like the older Carter again, which is good. But I feel like I was really worried, like a few months into this, that AEW to Okada was going to be the same that what WWE was to Shinsuke Nakamura, which was like a semi-retirement home.
Now Nakamura's champion, so maybe it's just the tail end of the years where everybody...
Okada's still champion, technically. So.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, could be even a justification to putting him on underrated for Okada if you are like, he's not booked super well. He's not my pick for that, though. My pick is actually somebody that's very late to the game here, and it's hard to already say that he's underrated, but I'm going to go Shelton Benjamin. How does this guy still look and wrestle like he did in 20 years ago? And people are just like, oh, yeah, he's a good hand. It's like, motherfucker, this guy's like a modern miracle of pro wrestling. Give him his flowers.
I don't think people, and as great as, and I've loved Shelton Benjamin since he first debuted. I think he's such a great wrestler. I don't think people expected him to be this good at this stage in his career.
Right.
Coming to AEW. I think people say that, oh yeah, Bobby Lashley's coming in and Shelton's just going to be there as the other guy, but like Shelton has just blown all expectations out of the water. And he also just painted the picture like, what the fuck were WWE not doing with him for the last few years when they had him?
The last many years. I mean, let's be real. If this style of wrestling was popular 15 years ago, Benjamin would have been a world champion. And I think the fact that he's in the conversation now is well deserved, and this is when I like to see people getting their flowers later in their careers because he's so good. And I'll grant the underrated comment for now, but it's kind of like Callum said about Mercedes, where it's like, no, I think people get it. The people see who Shelton Benjamin is, and I'm glad he's in a company where the fans can see him on a global scale being treated like the star that he is. He's a fucking man.
In terms of underrated from my perspective, so there's a lot of people that I feel like have, through their performances, merit more than what the company has been giving them, and there's certain people that I feel like don't get brought up in conversation enough as top level guys or girls. I think the Beast Mortos falls into this category. I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad match since he's been in AEW, and he's kind of positioned as okay, this is a guy that you put your top stars against, and he's going to make them look good. But at a certain point, you just go, hey, how about make this guy look good instead because he's great? Actually position him in that way instead. Got Commander similar. I think he's been doing excellent stuff in the Continental Classic since he was fortunately substituted in. I guess it's a mark of the company showing that they rate him to a degree that he was the choice to go into the Continental Classic once Bruce Robinson got injured. But yeah, I think that he should be given more next year to do. Got Harley Cameron, super entertaining, somewhat limited, but is doing some cool stuff. Big Bill, Brody King, these are guys that just consistently put on good matches or have good characters and are kind of relegated to understudies in their groups rather than being focal points. In a kind of a women's division scenario where you have the world title has been pretty much this kind of caricature thing between Mariah May and Toni Storm, and Mercedes has been the de facto TBS champion for this entire time. I think it's pretty criminal that a talent like Chris Statlander has kind of had to be relegated to the second and third level feuds when everything she's done this year, I think she's pretty much knocked out of the park. And I just don't think that the company recognises what they have with her, and they haven't pushed her to the level that she should be pushed. She should have, her feud with Willow Nightingale earlier this year should have been the World Championship feud. Whereas, but they've gone in different directions with all that stuff. But overall, again, my choice for most underrated is Mark Briscoe. I think I followed Ring of Honor sparingly, but I never and obviously when it came to Ring of Honor, Jay was the big single star, and Mark, did his own thing in singles matches occasionally, but he was a tag team guy with his brother, and Jay was the one that was a multiple-time world champion. But to see Mark come into AEW and to be one of the best promos in the company, super worker, absolutely just runs his socks off in the matches, throws his body around, is a smart worker as well, gets a brilliant crowd connection, he's super likeable, brilliant babyface. Like, this is a guy that I think people need to be talking about more when it comes to, okay, who's the potential world champion in this company? I know Briscoe's been for a while, but like, he's, for me, is like should be seen as in a similar breath to Eddie Kingston. Whereas, like, yeah, potentially there are certain limitations to being like him being like a top level world champion or a world champion for months and months on end, but he could be a guy that you give like a month-long reign to at some point. I would basically equivalent him to WWE's treat Mick Foley.
I can see that.
Like Mick Foley's not going to be a 6-month-long world champion, but for like the 3 weeks that he does hold the belt, it's going to be pretty cool. So again, I think Mark Briscoe should be treated in that same breath, really.
So this was kind of hard for me because up until he won the international championship, my whole plan here was to talk about how what the fuck he did with Konosuke Takeshita, because he really was sort of just floundering a little in my eyes. And I'm glad to have seen him get his flowers. You know, that's a really good thing, and he's done great work outside of AEW with the G1 and having those banger matches in Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. So I'm glad that I'm not here talking about how underrated he is. But I will say this, and this will be weird considering the role he's been put in, but I think people don't understand how great Wheeler Yuta is going to be in a couple of years. If he keeps up this trajectory, he's going to be one of the top go-to match of the night, match of the year guys in the near future. And it's all because of his seasoning with Danielson and Mox and everything he's done with the BCC.
Shout out to Yuta. On a similar wavelength, we have the improvement in a wrestler category, which is, it's not that they're underrated and overrated, it's whether they've had a big upgrade or a big downgrade, if they've regressed or they've improved. It could be in any kind of category. It could be like, you went from being a jobber to winning championships. It could just be in terms of overall quality or star power, whatever it might be. And I had a couple different names down for biggest downgrade. One being Hikaru Shida had been a 2-time champion last year, and I don't remember her doing really anything all that much of value this year. So that was kind of a stark difference between when I was like doing my comparisons, but not going to go with her. I had down the Lucha Bros for pretty obvious reasons. Seems like we might get Penta in January 6th, WWE. And the 3 that I'm really bouncing around here, I don't think I'm going to go with Wardlow, because when I looked back at like what he really did last year, it wasn't a particularly great year. It was just that there was a chance for it to be better. Than this year, it's just been absolutely terrible. So I'm debating between either Saraya or Ricky Starks. Saraya because she won the women's championship in London, and then this year couldn't get on the damn card. And that's something that I think speaks volumes. But then you look at Ricky Starks and you're like, this guy was in a program with Punk for this championship and everything. And he starts off this year as a tag team champion with Big Bill. And the past good chunk of this year has been him being like, motherfucker, let me go. I want to leave. And just putting out little tweets that are like passive aggressive and stuff, and doing interviews where he's just kind of, I can't say anything, but fuck that place. And that's a huge downgrade to go from a major focal point, let's try to make him one of the main stars of this company type of presentation that he had been for a little while, to we're going to make you sit out your contract and you fucking hate it here.
Yeah, I have Ricky Starks solidly in my downgrade, because the past several years, like, there's always been something brewing where you're like, oh, he's gonna be something here. and he had the feud with Jericho, and it kind of, maybe it's coming and then it doesn't. He fought MJF, maybe it's coming, it doesn't. He got a lot of the rub from Punk, had a great match with Danielson last year, and then he wins the tag titles with Big Bill, and you're like, all right, but they're doing something with him, and I like the pairing, and as long as he's on TV, he's going to do a lot. Then he loses the belts to Sting, loses real quick in a tournament match to FTR, and then you don't see him for months. And then when you do see him, he pops up in GCW, and then gets that match taken away from him. And I'm not going to get into all of the why all of that happened, but in any case, it's a downgrade for the wrestler. And it doesn't appear to be a medical downgrade either. That's why Adam Cole's not here for me, or Britt Baker, because they went down, but it's not because of, something other than a medical thing, which they can't control.
That makes me feel pretty bad if I do give this to Britt Baker, which I was.
Were you about to give Britt Baker?
And that's one of the ones I have listed down, just because she's it's not even so much that she was doing anything super special the previous year, because she wasn't champion or anything, but it's more the perception of her from being the face of AEW's women's division for such the longest time, to the point now where there's a lot of people that would probably think that AEW better off if she wasn't there anymore.
Mm.
And so that was the general reason for it. I understand the health issues and the associated with it, and maybe the drop in quality. She's rusty, she's been away for a while. But let's say I haven't enjoyed pretty much any of the matches that she's had since coming back. But I understand that it might take time for her to rediscover the form that's made her such a big star beforehand. So maybe it'd be worth just giving her a little bit of leeway. So I don't really want to give it to Ricky Starks in the same way I don't want to give it to Miro or the Hardy Boys or people like that, because they were doing other stuff last year, and now they're doing nothing and they're on the shelf. And that's obviously a downgrade, but it's kind of they're not really there anymore. So it's is it that I would rather focus on the people that were on TV and doing stuff last year and now are on TV not doing stuff.
But that's why I felt like Ricky was fair, because he was.
Oh yeah, but he was on TV for a while, here. Yeah, but all these people were on TV. Well, outside of Miro, were on TV for a little while before doing stuff. I mean, Jeff and Matt Hardy were still having matches at the start for the first half of this year before departing. So, I was thinking a little bit about Roderick Strong, because kind of the fanfare of which he came into the company has kind of been eroded away, and now he's just a mean character, which I think is unfair to his capabilities. But I'm probably going to go with the Acclaimed.
Oh yeah, fuck them.
Because gone from trios champions last year and then at the start of this year to being now considered pretty much irritants. And again, a lot of this is just directed pretty firmly on Max Caster. Obviously, a little bit towards Billy Gunn being there still at this point, but he's he's inoffensive, whereas Caster is very much offensive, and Bowens is being dragged down by the association now of both of them. So I think that. But yeah, it's clear to see that the excitement, the fan engagement towards the Acclaim just doesn't seem to be there as much as it was before. So I'd say they're very heavily downgraded.
And obviously swapping it to the opposite side of that, the biggest upgrade. A couple
I
different
think I
people.
can guess Tony's one. You say the people you did, but I think with pretty much 99% certainty I know which one you're going to say.
Really? I got a feeling you might not. But here are the runner-ups that I had down. Jack Perry went from being out of the company to being a champion in the company and a big focal point with the Elite. Pac, I thought, had a pretty significant upgrade this year, now part of Death Riders and all. The three that I had towards the top, I don't know exactly which one I'm going to go with, because there's one that is very recent, so I don't think I'm going to go in that direction, but they were in the running for this, which was Private Party. They were doing fuck all last year, but now they're the tag team champions. I think I'm probably going to go runner-up on Swerve Strickland, but I'm kind of debating between whether or not he should be on there or not, because the only other option... Now, I want to see if you guess this. What's your guess of what I have?
I would guess you one is Kyle Fletcher.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Kyle Fletcher went from a guy that I was just like, I don't understand it, to, okay, the past couple months, he's been doing some great work. And I'm leaning more towards giving it to Kyle Fletcher than Swerve, because, I mean, I knew that Swerve was fun and everything beforehand. Fletcher, I was very down on before, and now I get it.
I mean, I'm glad you get it, because he's one of the best wrestlers in the world and makes a very strong argument for most improved. But, and I know I'm going to be the outlier here because everything else has already been said on this podcast, but I've got to go Jack Perry, because this time last year, it was sort of like, I don't know, man. Is he even gonna come back? Or are they just gonna be like, hey, you were the last straw with Punk and now we're mad at you, and, fuck off. But he found himself this year, and you could make an argument as to whether or not it's been the most electrifying stuff. But he did find himself this year and has been doing much better work, and now has a chance of coming into his own outside the Jungle Boy stuff for the first time ever.
That's one of the ones where, like, I think it's technically right, but I don't want it to be right. in the like, yes, going from a guy that was pretty much like persona non grata last year to being a TNT champion and being heavily positioned as part of this elite storyline is definitely like a huge upgrade. But because I'm not as big a fan of what Perry's been doing recently, I just don't really want to give the award to him. I'm looking at other people like the Outrunners going from like a jobber tag team on Ring of Honor to being a featured act in AEW. Pretty significant upgrade. Marina Shafir from being like a laughingstock for a lot of us, and a lot of like above jokes in terms of like negative awards and stuff like that, to being like, again, she's not wrestling a lot, but like her actual characterization as part of the Death Riders is just really elevated her reputation. I think people were like super into her as a character now. Queen Ominata, again, similar story to the Outrunners, like someone that was confined for a long time to Ring of Honor and being enhancement talent, is now positioned higher. Again, she still has a way to go before she's like going to be a champion at any point in time, but she's definitely on that trajectory. Mark Briscoe won the Ring of Honor world title at the kind of like the back end of last year, but because we kind of do our awards before that sort of stuff happens, it's like it's cool to see him like be a world champion for a while, and to see him be positioned quite higher in AEW side of things. You got Daniel Garcia, finally a champion. Pac as well as part of Death Riders. I took a big upswing on Brian Cage this year in terms of just like, I think that his overall work has been just like a big improvement to me, and I think that he's positioned where he needs to be now, which is Ring of Honor TV champion and part of the dominant tag team. So that works for me. I think that's the level that he should be at, and he's doing well in that level. And then the two main ones are obviously Kyle Fletcher and Swerve Strickland. I think then, just for the sake of differentiation, I think because it's close between the two of them, I'm going to go with Swerve, because, he went from a guy who was definitely on the cusp by the end of 2023 of being, okay, this guy's going to be something special, but then to prove it, and I think in many ways exceed so many people's expectations for him as a main event, like, world champion, I think that has to be the biggest improvement. Especially considering where he was probably at the start of 2023 to where he is at the end of 2024.
And let's switch over to, I think we have 3 left for this one. Yeah, we do 3 left on that. So it's a very self-explanatory category. Ring work. You know what it is. So I am really struggling with picking a worst ring work, because this is one of those categories where the people that really suck, I just don't watch their matches. I tune them out. So, like a Parker Boudreaux from earlier this year, sure, maybe. I'm sure there's plenty of people in ROH.
I'm sorry, did Parker Boudreaux wrestle at some point this year?
Pretty sure he did. He at least wasn't
I know
confirmed to be released
I don't remember.
until this year, so I don't know. But then again, it's like, take your pick with like any types of people that I'm not too familiar with. I'm sure that they are lots of people that suck that I just don't pay attention to. Saddam Singh, maybe. And then I'm like, well, maybe I should just give this to Saraya, because at least she's a prominent enough name and she's been around long enough that she should be better. And yet I don't enjoy any of her matches.
Damn, Saraya just catching strays.
I'd be thankful it's not Mercedes. It wouldn't be, but still, she's, that's why she gets overrated. So I think I'm maybe going Saraya, but I kind of plead ignorance a little bit on this category of like, I'm sure if I would have been able to keep track of things better throughout this year, I probably would have thought of some other options too.
See, this one's really hard because I struggle to think of someone who's like terrible in the ring to where it's like, I don't want to watch your matches. Like almost everybody on the roster knows what they're doing, and I think for that reason I might just have to go with Satnam Singh, because he did wrestle Bryan Danielson at some point this year, and that's just terrible that you would do that to Bryan Danielson on his way out the door.
So I think there's some people. I think that's like I don't think Claire is. No, she's not great, but I don't think that. I'd say that she's like in AEW generally, because three that's one of them I think I might give it to, so I'll leave that one. But like two that I'm not going to give it to, the immediately fits one, Anna Jay, who I just all the rhetoric around her is like how much she's improved and that she's a rising star as a player. I think she's pretty much wrestled at the same level since she debuted all those years ago. I don't think there's like there might be a fractional improvement just based on the fact that she's wrestled more, but I just don't think it's a sizable change. And then there's Abaddon, who I think is like just categorically bad, but I just don't think that she's particularly good at all. Then you look at the likes of Jeff Hardy wrestled earlier this year.
Yeah, that's true.
And boy, they suck now. Billy Gunn, who just doesn't have any sort of stamina anymore, which is understandable because he's in his 60s, and you can't like supplement adrenaline with steroids, so it's like there's only so much you can do with that. And Jake Hager, because Jake Hager sucks, and he's a sucky human being, and so he deserves negative awards. But I think the one I'm going to go for, the one that I just markedly said, oh no, in terms of like their matches and what I was seeing, is Camille.
Yeah, she was also really.
She only had a handful of matches in AEW this year because she was mostly doing like the bodyguard duties for Mercedes. But oh boy, they were bad, to the point where, and I'm going to believe this until I see differently. I think she's going to get released, or she's going to be on like tied to her contract but not do anything for at least a while. I don't see an immediate like that she's been brought back for a match with Mercedes. I think she did the injury angle to write her off TV for the future, and then if they do decide to bring her back, will just be attached to something completely different.
I completely agree. Actually, when they wrote her off so quickly, I was worried that they're cutting bait. So it'll be interesting to see if that's actually what happens. She almost got most overrated for me because, kind of like Callum with Peraza, at this point, because she was one of the only positives on the NWA programming, was like, oh good, Camille's going to be somewhere decent. And then it all just fell apart very quickly. And then she had some weird tweets. And then, like, whatever. Like, okay, just get as far away from AEW as possible, I guess, is how I feel about her at this point.
What was her? She had some weird tweets going on.
Some weird, like it's on abortion, and it was just weird.
It's one of those.
It was just kind of like when the hurricane was coming, barreling towards my house, and I had to look at all the NXT people, be like, "Look up cloud seeding. Look at what they're doing to the weather. Like, what the fuck's going on?"
I'm looking at it now. Yeah. Well, I had Camille down for a worst on something, so I guess I'll keep her there. Best in-ring work. Thankfully, we have quite a bit of options, and I'm sure we all can kind of.
We could save time and just say it at the same time.
Well, there are a couple of people that are in the mix, I think, but I would assume that we're probably down to like basically 2 people. But I wanted to shout out Claudio. It's always great. Takeshita, big fan of Orange Cassidy. Never puts on a bad match, really, for me. Shout out to Pac. Shout out to Roderick Strong. Jack Perry still puts on great matches to me. But I got a feeling we're probably going to go between either Bryan Danielson or the one that I'm going to go with, and I think might be a trifecta, Will Ospreay.
Look, Bryan Danielson is one of the best in the world, and I hate that he's not a full-time guy anymore. Like, genuinely, it's sicko behavior, but like you see the fans on Twitter like, yeah, fuck your kids, man, we need you, and you kind of think like, yeah, I love Bryan Danielson, but no, it's Will Ospreay. It's Ospreay. Ospreay is the best wrestler in the world right now.
Yeah, I mean, before I stated the obvious about how the greatest wrestler in the world and one of the greatest wrestlers of all time is going to win the best in-ring work of the year for AEW. Again, I'll shout out people that Tony's already mentioned as well, like Takeshita obviously is excellent. The Young Bucks, again, they've been maligned this year, but I think when it's come to like the big matches, they've delivered like tremendously. Darby Allin always has great matches. Swerve Strickland's had great matches. Adam Page has great matches. Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale had great matches, with each other. But yeah, I would say that, and yeah, Bryan Danielson is obviously 1B in this because it was just an important year for him, and he went in every match trying to do the best work possible, and for the most part, he did. But I just don't think there's anyone that can touch Will Ospreay in the ring right now in any promotion in the world. I just think that if you are in a match with him, if it's not the best match in your career, then something's gone horribly wrong.
Now, mic work, totally different set of skills. Somebody could be terrible in the ring, great on the mic, vice versa too. My worst options, I wrote down most people are meh at best, which is kind of a cop-out answer, but I'll point out 3 of them. I really don't like Saraya on the mic either. I hate to keep mentioning Saraya's name, but she cuts promos that I don't like, and I don't find her character funny. I don't find her character like cute or interesting or intimidating or like anything. It's just like, she's talking. But there are 2 more people that I think are cringier when they get on the mic. At least from what I can remember. Some of the other people, like, I haven't heard, like Erica Lee talk or something like that. So maybe there's people in ROH that are really terrible or something, like a Cole Carter or somebody, I don't know. But at least on the main stage of things, you gotta stop putting this microphone in front of Ricochet. Oh my God, man. Like that most recent thing where he's like, oh, I've got this card. And he like walks away and whatever. And he's like laughing at Renee. I was like, I rewound the thing. So I'm like, wait, he didn't make that noise, did he?
I don't know if it's still there. I'm checking now. But at one point recently, his Wikipedia said, Trevor Mann, also known as Ricochet, or the man that charisma forgot.
Dude's so impressive in the ring, and he's so fun to watch and everything. And then it's like, it's clearly not a WWE promo thing. It's clearly from him. But there is one person that I'm going to rank worse than him. And it's because this person is treated as if they're great on the mic. It's Mercedes Moné.
Yeah, her promos haven't been great this year.
Terrible this year. And it's like, you have your own writer. You specifically brought your own writer for here because you're like, oh, that's the one that really makes it work. No.
In fairness, not so this is fairness to her because it's actually going to be like criticism of her. I don't think she's ever been a good promo.
That's where I get into the whole thing I mentioned earlier, where I'm like, this exposing more and more that I'm like, okay, I didn't really like her promos that much in WWE now either. I think I liked her promos better when she was in NXT, when it was like she still had a way to go, but man, she's got a lot of potential. And then it just kind of crashed.
Now, for me, for worst, I'm not going with Mercedes, even though, like I said, she hasn't been great this year on the mic. I'm gonna be honest and just get out of the way. I'm gonna go Chris Jericho on this. This year has been the first time since AEW started where it really felt like, what are we doing with Jericho? And it's getting to the point where, okay, we don't want him in the top stories, and we still have to have him on TV. The leaning into the TV time and the whole like learning tree aspect, it's just not great, and it's really gotten to the point where it's like, go away for a little bit, make people miss you, and then come back and have like a, get your flowers last run kind of thing, because this shit's not working for me.
I won't go for either of those two because as like negative, like their own perception AW has been this year. I don't think that they're the worst promos in the company. The ones that are the worst promos are the ones that are given the mic often and like felt impressive. You could say that those two fall into that category as well. So,
guess where you're going? I think I know where you're going.
can I go through some honorable mentions first before?
Go ahead.
I'd say you can guess afterwards, but like the ones that got like honorable mentions, Kyle O'Reilly. Like, there's a reason why pretty much all backstage promos.
Promo. Yeah,
it's just that all backstage promos are essentially like mobs go talking, and then Kyle just like having facial expressions alongside him, and like, that don't know how it works. But then you actually put the microphone in Kyle's hands, it just falls apart. I don't think Wheeler Yuta was a particularly good promo yet. He'll get there, but he's just a bit too wooden at the moment. Speaking of wooden, Anna Jay and Sky Blue, who seem to be permanently set on like robot automaton in terms of their voices. Jack Jameson, stop talking, get off my screen. This is the worst act in the entire company.
Wow, no Titty City for Callum.
I don't like Jack Perry's promos. Just don't think that he's particularly good at it. And Camille, again, very wooden, very monotone. But that's Rob. Do you want to guess it?
I'm gonna guess that you're going with guy who gets the microphone a lot and it's kind of tired shtick, Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
Oh, you were close. It's not Max Jacob Friedman. It's Max
Adam
Caster.
Cole?
It's Max
Oh,
Caster.
yeah.
It's a different match.
Yeah. A guy that pretty much has the microphone and everything and pretty much just spew stuff, which is such a repellent to me that I just, again, don't listen to any of the entrances now. I just have to skip forward to their matches. But yeah, this whole thing about like best wrestler in the world and this other stuff that he's doing is just, yeah, he's just an irritant now at this point.
Now, as a non-American, is it just as annoying? Because for me, it's annoying because, like, I already have to hear this shit all the time. And it's, again, like I said when I gave him worst entrance, it's that I'm going to be so edgy and own the libs kind of rhetoric that really, makes my skin crawl. Is it like that for you? Or do you just feel like, outside of the politics, just get this fucker off the screen?
It's not too deep for me. He's just really, really annoying.
Yeah.
So I just would prefer that he just didn't talk as much. And it's also the fact that, like, it's probably the fact that it's just the same thing, and it has been the same thing since pretty much they debuted. Like, it's now like 3-4 years in, you have to, like, we need to switch up a little bit.
Hopefully they split them soon and they can try to be stars on their own.
It's gotta happen pretty soon. They're hinting at it way too fast. That, like, if they drag this out forever, it's gonna be like, who cares anymore?
Which one of those things, like, I could make the argument that, like, the New Day, for a while, like, they hit a point probably about, like, 4, 5, 6 years into their run where everyone's like saying, okay, we're going to do something a little bit different, but this ain't going to change. But then sometimes you ride through that and then it becomes either good again, or it becomes like, oh, you can't split them up now, or you can't do anything with them. This is, like, fixed. So hopefully they don't get to the point with this act, because I think that just limits Bowen's potential in particular. But it's a case of, there is the argument to say, oh, you ride out this bad patch for a couple of years, and then eventually people just feel like, oh, this is kind of part of the furniture.
So what you're saying is Anthony Bowens and Max Caster are having issues with each other, so they're going to team up and say, fuck you, Billy Gunn, and do the Big Heave.
Hey, that would probably at least revitalize them in the short term.
Let's see, best mic work. I wish I could give this to MJF like I normally do, but not this year. Not this time.
Talk about an act that's tired and needs to go.
He should have gone to WWE, I think.
You're not a fan of his flavor of ice cream, bro?
No, not anymore. I just need him to add something new. It's like the same. It's like vanilla at this point, and I need to put some chocolate swirl, put some sprinkles. Let's put some Reese's peanut butter cups. Like, let's get something new in this, because it's the same. It's like Caster in a way, actually, but with MJF, I feel more confident that he's just like this on screen, whereas Max Caster, I think, might be like this off screen, where it's like, be a little less edgy. His promos are all the same after a while, and I want something new.
I can't give it to him, but my 3 options I wrote down are Mark Briscoe. We talked about him earlier.
He's fantastic.
My runner-up, I'm assuming, in the grand scheme, Don Callis. I think he pretty much always nails what he's supposed to be doing. And then the ultimate pick that I've got, at least right now, unless anybody says anything that jogs my memory, Christian Cage.
Christian Cage is really good. He's close. He's a runner-up for me. First of all, I'm going to give an honorable mention, even though I was really hard on this whole bullshit, and I still am. I can't believe how much it's taken over the wrestling community. But I got to give Big Boom AJ a little bit of credit here. When the man knows how to sell a wrestling match, like, it's almost like he's from a different era completely, because he knows how to bring the boom, and he knows how to actually say when the event's taking place and sell the match. But obviously not my pick for promo of the year. My pick for promo of the year is Hangman Adam Page. When this dude talks, you care. He seems legitimately heated. He seems legitimately, like, incensed on getting back to the world championship. He believes he's right. And I kind of wish he was clashing with Moxley one-on-one right now, because they both have that same, like, my idea is right, and I know how to lead this company into the future.
Yeah, it's definitely great. A lot of great choices here. Like, Moxley's high up there as well, and Christian Cage is definitely a good choice. But I think that I didn't see as much of it this year that I thought was at the level that it was in previous years. Jay White is a great promo. I love the fact that he's talking more. Like, there was a while when he first came in, where it's just like, hey, you're not really giving this guy a mic enough times, and he's a really great talker. But it's good that they're now doing that. I think that Tony Storm is very charismatic on the microphone, and again, a lot of the stuff she's saying is, like, not gibberish, but, like, very hokey and corny. But she commits to it, and she commits to the character. Holly Cameron is also great on the microphone. She's very entertaining to listen to. Bryan Danielson up there as well, because, like, all the talk about in the past, but he was just like, oh, he's a great wrestler, but he can't cut promos. Like, look at him now, he's like one of the best, one of the most emotive. Like, he gets his point across brilliantly. And then I have to say that, like, as well as being the best in-ring worker in the world, I think that Will Ospreay is also one of the best promos in the world, because the crowd really is gets engaged when he's cutting promo because he is very like emotive, and I really appreciate the fact. Well, I guess AEW really appreciates the fact that he's managed to cut out saying that like "fuck or cunt" in his promos as he would always do when he was in New Japan. But the best for me, I think, is Mark Briscoe. Like, I just think that he's such a great baby face, and it just comes across with everything he says. He's funny, but he's passionate, and he can make people laugh and be super quirky and funny with the things he says as well. But he can also get super serious, but not in a super serious way where it's like, okay, I'm like, fun guy, and now I'm putting on my serious face. It feels genuine. It feels authentic. Like, everything about Mark Briscoe feels authentic, and that is carried through his promo style. And so I think he shout out there. Also, like, honorable mention to MVP as well. So good as a manager. So good as a manager as well.
And what'll round us out on the technical skills side of things is the best and the worst match of the year. Here's where I really dropped the ball. I didn't write down any worst match of the year. I didn't have any when I was really keeping track of this, and then 2024 went absolutely crazy, and by that point, I just wasn't keeping track of them. I do not remember the worst matches because I've just plumb forgotten them. So I don't even have any nominations at this point. I kind of have to abstain from this one and just go, I don't know. I tuned out a lot of this year.
I like you saying that you've plumb forgotten.
The Mango has plumb forgotten. He went totally bananas.
So it's difficult because I have quite a few known for best, but for worst, I can't say I remember anything or saw anything that was like so egregiously bad of a match that I was like, yeah, I gotta make sure I complain about this later in the year, So I can't. I'm kind of right there with you. What about you, Callum?
So I've got 5 written down. Just I did a mix of things of like just through a mixture of my own memory, but also from looking at Cage Match and looking at the lowest rated matches from AEW this past year, and then just rewatching them and just kind of getting a sense of how bad they were. So there was Kazuchika versus Ultimo Guerrero from Collision, which seems like bizarre that I'm putting Okada into like one of the worst matches of the year. But it was that really stupid one where AEW asked Ultimo Guerrero to wear a mask, and so they had to put together like a mask at the very last minute, which was like uncomfortable and you could barely see out of it. And then the whole point of it is because the only reason they wanted to wear a mask is so that Okada could take the mask off and use to help get an advantage and win. And it's just like, well, McGregor hasn't wrestled with a mask on for about a decade. So it's like, this is, it just was silly, and the match wasn't very good. Like, it had to be edited pretty heavily because of the collision stuff. You got Danielson versus Satnam Singh because it's a freak show match, but, like, that if Danielson's having a match that's that low down, it's like, okay, this guy's pretty bad. But I say it wasn't a terrible match, but it was just like, and the fact that it didn't end with like Danielson pinning the guy, they had to do a count out type finish or a small finish because you really have to protect Satnam Singh. Gianna Perazzo versus Madison Rain. It was just a match on Dynamite, but it's a pretty bad match, and you can kind of see why it had Madison Rain involved in it. Then there's the top 2, which is the worst rated match from AEW this year on any show, which was Jay White versus Billy Gunn. This happened early this year during that feud. You can't fucking have Jay White beat Billy Gunn.
What happened in there? Because I kind of remember something happened, but I don't remember if I thought that it was really bad or if it was funny.
It was a really short match. It was a really short match, and pretty much Billy Gunn dominated the entire thing. And then it ended with I think the Guns getting involved because it's been the feud leading up to their the title unification match, but it was just it's Jay White. I say I'm not saying that he needs to be beating every single person to be the world champion for 2 years running, anything like that. But he should be a 61-year-old man who's like hasn't been a top guy since the 90s, early 2000s at that point. So it's like, just have Jay White beat Billy Gunn. It doesn't hurt him. But no, they had to instead just do a really short match with a small finish where Billy Gunn took 90% of the match. It's like, yeah, that was awful. But then the other one that I categorise as the most disappointing match of the year, which is Britt Baker versus Mercedes Moné at All In. See, not everything about All In was good. And I was in the crowd for that one as well, and I could just tell, oh, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like a botch thing. It was like the crowd that'd been alive for so much of the show was absolutely dead. Like they weren't involved at all, and they just like they were all just sitting on their hands watching this stuff happen. So the atmosphere was bad. They didn't really do much to help spur the crowd back into it. I was just sitting there, just bored, and yeah, it really failed to live up to the hype that was surrounding it. So I guess technically, the worst match of the year is Jay White versus Billy Gunn because it was just horrible concept and horribly executed. But the special place for Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné is probably the most disappointing match of the year.
I like both of those options, but you said that and jogged my memory, and I was pissed after that match because it wasn't so much that, even though this is also egregious, that Jay White couldn't beat Billy Gunn. It was that he was running scared and getting his ass kicked by Billy Gunn. And Billy Gunn's heyday was 25 years ago. There's people in wrestling right now that weren't alive when Billy Gunn was in the middle of his heyday. I'm sorry. It's true. Look at Nick Wayne, 19 years old. Billy Gunn should not have done that. And yeah, that was de facto the worst match of the year. Thank you for jogging the memory.
Looking back to see, because I wouldn't have written down any kind of review for a match on Dynamite, but I'm trying to find the Mercedes and Britt Baker thing. I had written some sloppy moments, some good moments, a lot of perfectly fine stuff, and all balances out to something that I could see people feeling very pro or con on, depending on where they wanted this to be before it even started, i.e. super fans of them thinking it was great, detractors thinking it was garbage. But I don't think that anyone missed anything if they skip it ultimately. It doesn't feel like this is being particularly well received overall, and I can't make an argument against that. So at least that was how I perceived that. But any of these kind of things on cage match, I don't remember Deonna Purrazzo versus Madison Rayne. I'm sure it probably sucked if it's got a 2.53 rating overall.
I'm just looking at it because it's the case of just seeing the gap between even a 2.53 is obviously bad, but to see the Billy Gunn Jay White's rated at 1.41 is probably just an expression of how bad it is. That makes it probably, in terms of cage aspects, probably one of their worst matches of all time. Just looking now to see got things on there. Obviously there's a lot of matches that are just unrated because either they were too short or people weren't aware of anything along those lines. So I'm trying to see what the lowest so the lowest rated match is the Matt Hardy Sammy Guevara match, obviously, from the one where Matt Hardy busted his skull open.
Almost died, yeah.
Yeah. And then I think yes, Billy Gunn Jay White is in terms of matches that are rated, is the 5th worst match in AEW's history. Behind the Big Swole and Little Swole versus Leva Bates and Ray Chanel, which I assume is a dark match. And it has 8 ratings, so it probably doesn't matter too much. And then the Britt Baker and Rebel versus Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero match, which was terrible. That weird thing where they're not doing Vicky Guerrero. This is when Zelina Vega had been released by WWE. They're bringing in Zelina Vega instead, and she's going to be part of Vicky Guerrero stable. But no, they're actually having Vicky Guerrero wrestle in 2021. And then there was a Says Benoni Luchasaurus match that was bad apparently as well. But then it's Billy Gunn Jay White. So realistically, considering the number of votes attached to it, it's probably considered by AEW hardcore fans as the 3rd worst match in AEW's history.
Yeah, I can't argue against it.
And Lady Frost versus Riho, didn't even see it. Red Velvet versus Thunder Rosa. Don't remember if I saw it. Anna Jay versus Julia Hart. Like, all these things. Too many fucking matches happen. There's too many matches in WWE's multiple shows per week, on AEW's multiple shows per week. And unless they're like, they particularly stand out as really atrocious. And if I'm paying attention to it at the time, because let's be honest, if it's a match like I'm looking on this list and I don't know if maybe I might have seen something like the Britt Baker versus Penelope Ford match, like maybe I would have watched that, but I don't remember for sure. I might have just seen those two names and gone, oh, I think it's more important for me to make sure I don't overcook my pasta. And I'll just overhear whether or not Britt Baker won and then like add that to my notes or something. You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, maybe Mariah May versus Saraya, maybe Camille versus Queen Aminata, maybe Moxley and Hobbs. I don't know. Maybe any of them could have been the worst. Or maybe I would have been one of those outliers and just been like, I really fucking hated this match from that episode of Dynamite on this random day or so. I don't know. So I have to kind of plead a little bit of ignorance on that. But I did have some matches listed down on the best that I had written down earlier in the year, thankfully. And some of those, I don't remember specifically which ones I would have ranked higher and all, but the 5 matches that I had written down, at least to the point of All In, you could definitely see that All In, it's when a lot of this became like, I stopped taking notes because then everything in my life just went to, completely fucking haywire. And then it was like, all right, it's not as important for me to write down notes for WWE and AEW this year. But I wrote down Will Ospreay versus Konosuke Takeshita at AEW Revolution. I remember that being a lot of fun. Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson at Dynasty. Pretty sure that is the highest rated one on this list. It's the match
I saw the most times this year, which doesn't necessarily equate to the fact that I'm going to pick it, but I will say I saw it at least 5 or 6 times.
I've got the ladder match between FTR and Young Bucks at Dynasty. I've got the Anarchy in the Arena match from Double or Nothing, and Danielson Strickland from All In.
I would throw onto that list Chris Statlander versus Willow Nightingale in Chicago. I would throw onto that list Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page in Chicago. I would throw onto that list, honestly, Mox versus Danielson, because I just didn't think Danielson was going to lose so quickly, and it kind of shocked me a little. Edge had some great matches this year, even the one with Malachi Black before he decided to be stupid and jump up top of the cage, I thought was a pretty fun match. But realistically, I think this comes down to Will Ospreay having the matches of the year with Danielson, with Swerve, with Kyle Fletcher. I thought that was a great match and really helped put Kyle over. And then I think to myself, similar to what Cody did for Tony, as you guys will hear in the WWE Awards that we've already recorded, Danielson winning at All In and then subsequently having his daughter on his lap saying it was the most important night of life and he'll never forget it. It's just an emotional thing. And we like to say on this podcast that good things are good. And that was a really good thing. And I wish we got more of it.
Oh, as AEW is known for just producing great matches, especially on pay-per-view, so there was a glut of choice to choose for. I had 12, well, technically 12 written down, but one of the things I have written down is every single AEW Casino Gauntlet. It's like, okay, for me, this is Royal Rumble on steroids. In terms of just like, it's faster, it's a random intervals, it's just a crazy version of Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble is the greatest gimmick match type of all time. I'm not saying it's better because it still has longevity. It still doesn't have the longevity the AEW one has, but I think it's the most exciting new match type. That this and the Iron Survivor challenge matches are the 2 best new match types been created for a long time. But then there's lots of other choices. Rob mentioned Chris Statlander and William Nightingale for All Out, and Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland from All Out were great. I don't know if I'm the first person to mention this, but Sting and Darby Allin versus the Young Bucks at Revolution.
Yeah, talk about good things are good. That was also a very feel-good moment.
Absolutely crazy match, and just so well put together. Obviously, Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland was a phenomenal, emotional match, and being there in person to see it was just like a privilege to watch. But then okay, so those are 5 matches, or 5 like collected matches, and then have 7 other matches, and they all feature Will Ospreay because naturally. So his match with MJF are all in, and you could also maybe throw in the hour-long match, near hour-long match they had in Dynamite as well. Ospreay Swerve Strickland Forbidden Door, Ospreay versus Pac at All Out was a great match. Ospreay versus Fletcher was brilliant and put him over. He also had a great match with Fletcher in his first match on Dynamite as well. And he had the threat with Takeshita and Ricochet, and the Takeshita one, which is the first match in. But the best match of the year, in my opinion, is Ospreay versus Danielson, just from a pure technical standpoint and the anticipation going into it of like the, in many people's eyes, the best wrestler potentially of all time against the best wrestler in the world right now, and then just going all out. The match didn't need story, it didn't need a lot of like bells and whistles attached to it. It was just 2 of the best wrestlers in the world going out to see who's the best out of the 2 of them, and Ospreay going out on top. And yeah, it was just a phenomenal match.
So shout outs again to anything that we completely forgot. That if anybody leaves a comment.
Did you say your match of the year?
I mean, it's between those 5. I don't really know which one I would go with. Maybe the Ospreay Danielson match, but it's hard for me to remember, and I didn't get a chance to rewatch them all. So if I rewatch them all, I might end up being like, actually, and on the second viewing, maybe it would be this one or so, but probably that one. If I remember correctly, that was the one that at the time I wrote down being like, this one's at the top. So I don't know. But again, it's hard to keep track of this stuff throughout the entire year with so many different things going on. I'm sure if we would have done these, back in like 1990 something, I would have been like, oh, it's obviously this. And then you just, roll along. But we might be forgetting things. And if you drop your comments below and you tell us what those things are that you picked, maybe we end up looking back and going, yeah, oh my God, that's right. I forgot about this other thing or something. So leave your comments. Tell us what you think about our lists, and make sure that you stay tuned, because we do have the writing awards for the AEW side of things and the performer awards. Less categories on those, but still a lot of things to break down when it comes to things like the best and the worst heels and baby faces, the title reigns, shocking moments, gimmicks, and all that other kind of good stuff there. And in the meantime, of course, though, make sure that you are clicking on all the good things you can find on here, like the thumbs up button. Double check you are subscribed, as I always mention. Ring that notification bell. Hit that Patreon button, or click on the join button, or support us through the thanks button. All different kinds of means that you can do things. They're all greatly appreciated. And you can follow us on the different things you could see on the link tree at amangotree.com. You can follow me at Tony Mango on most of those different platforms, and all the other ones, just click around and you'll see where they are. Make sure you're following these guys too.
Yep, you can follow me everywhere on social media at DeFelice. You can check out my work on Fightful. Check out everything else we've done on Smark Out Moment and Fanboys Anonymous throughout the year. And check out what Callum's got going on.
So you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Wigmost14. You can check out the power rankings every Saturday on smarkoutmoment.com to see how I'm ranking the WWE superstars for their previous week's performances. And also over on Smark Out Moments and at WWEFantasyLeague.com, you will find the Fantasy League and see the standings and see how our team's performing, who's picking up points, the weeks progress as we head towards next big rest stop, which is the Royal Rumble on the road towards WrestleMania.
Alrighty, everybody, you know the score. Make sure that you're following us on whatever platforms you want to follow us, and stay tuned in whatever fashion it is for the next videos that you want to check out, whether you're bouncing around between the WWE and the AEW side of things, and obviously click around on those. If you are on the audio only platforms, then you'll just be hearing us already, and you don't have to do anything. But at least on the AEW side, coming up next, the Writing Awards, WWE, different story. See how we record things, but you'll find them all here at Smark Out Moment. But in the meantime, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we are being counted out.